Every new beginning carries its mysteries, its hopes. That's what I told myself the day I signed the papers for the old house on the edge of Willow Creek. The realtor's smile was a bit too stiff as she handed me the keys, her eyes avoiding mine, as if shielding me from some unspoken truth. The house was a bargain, a relic swallowed by time and overgrown vines. It sat on a vast plot of land, most of it wild and untamed, with a sprawling backyard that tapered into the dense woods. It was on my third evening, while clearing some of the brambles, that I stumbled upon the old well. Overrun with ivy, it was a stone circle, cold and silent, a gaping mouth leading to an unknown depth. That night, as the wind whispered through the cracks of my new abode, I heard it for the first time. Soft, almost imperceptible whispers floated through the air, an eerie siren song that pulled at the edges of my consciousness. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, listening as the voices grew just a fraction louder, a symphony of indistinct murmurings that seemed to call my name. Each night, the whispers grew more insistent, more coherent. They promised secrets, wonders hidden in the dark recesses below the well. My days were consumed by thoughts of what lay beneath, and my nights were restless, filled with dreams of shadowy figures lurking in the water's depth. Driven by a mix of fear and fascination, I finally approached the well one moonless night. The air was thick with the scent of moss and wet earth. As I peered into the blackness, the whispers crescendoed into clear words. "Look closer," they urged. Trembling, I obeyed, my face hovering just above the still water. What I saw in the reflection sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't my face staring back at me, but that of another, pale, distorted, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the veil of reality. It smiled, a twisted, knowing grin that suggested it had been waiting for me. "Join us," the reflection whispered, its voice a chilling caress against my mind. "Set us free and partake in our eternal secret." I stumbled back, heart racing, mind reeling with terror. I ran into the house, locking every door, every window, but the whispers didn't cease. They were louder now, impossible to ignore. They followed me into my dreams, into my waking thoughts. The following nights blurred into a single, endless nightmare. I stopped leaving the house, my gaze constantly drawn to the well. The face haunted me, appearing in reflections, windows, mirrors, even in my phone screen. Then came the night I could resist no longer. I walked to the well, each step heavy with dread and an inexplicable eagerness. The face awaited, its grim smile wider. "Free us," it repeated as I leaned over the edge, my hands gripping the cold stones. "And be free." I don't remember falling in. I remember the cold embrace of the water, the dark closing in, and then a burst of light, an explosion of knowledge, secrets of ages flooding into my mind. Now I understand. Now I whisper too. My face joins the myriad others in the reflection, waiting for the next curious soul to peer into the depths, waiting to share the eternal secret of the well, the endless cycle of whispers and reflections. And so I whisper, adding my voice to the chorus, beckoning the next newcomer of Willow Creek, promising secrets, promising freedom. Each whisper a hook, each reflection a lure. The well waits, as do I, forever a part of its dark, whispering waters. I had always been a night owl, but my insomnia had become particularly intense lately, pushing me to find new hobbies to fill the sleepless hours. That's how I stumbled upon the dusty old shortwave radio in my grandfather's attic. I spent countless nights tinkering with it, listening to the static-filled whispers from distant lands, a comforting background noise for my solitude. One stormy night, with the wind howling against my windows, I tuned into a frequency I had never heard before. At first, it was just another crackle of static, but then a voice cut through. A frantic, trembling voice that sounded as if it was gasping for air. "It's here. It's watching me. I can see its eyes," the voice cried out, barely audible over the storm and the static. I sat up straight, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello? Can you hear me?" I tried responding, not really expecting an answer. The voice continued, oblivious to my attempts to communicate. "It's not human. It's something else. Something terrible." There was a guttural sound, a kind of snarling in the background, and then the transmission ended abruptly. I was left in silence, my breaths short and ragged. The only sound, the distant rumble of thunder. I tried to convince myself it was just a prank, a recording or a twisted radio drama forgotten in some broadcaster's late-night schedule. But the next night, as darkness enveloped my room again, I found myself drawn back to the radio, hands almost shaking as I dialed the same frequency. The storm had passed, and in the dead calm of my room, the voice returned. "This is my last broadcast. I won't survive the night," it said, more resigned than frantic this time. The background was eerily silent. "It's in the house now. I can hear it moving, dragging its whatever it has instead of feet. It's coming for me because I saw it, because I know what it is." My mind raced. Who was this person? Where were they? And what had they seen? I grabbed a notepad, scribbling down everything the voice said, desperate for clues. "If anyone is listening, tell them to look for the house at the end of Willow Lane, the one hidden by the old oak tree. Tell them to burn it down. It's the only way to keep it from spreading." The transmission cut to static once more, and this time, it didn't return. The abrupt silence was almost as terrifying as the broadcast itself. The next day, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, I searched for Willow Lane on maps, on the internet, but found nothing. It was as if the place didn't exist. Each night, I returned to the radio, but the frequency only offered static. No more cries for help, no more descriptions of monstrous creatures. Just an unsettling silence that seemed to mock my frantic search. Weeks passed. My obsession with the broadcast began to fade, rationality telling me it was just a figment of my stressed and sleep-deprived brain. Until one night, tuning absent-mindedly through frequencies, I stopped on a news report. "A mysterious fire destroyed an abandoned house last night," the reporter said. "Located on what locals call Old Willow Path, hidden by an ancient oak, the house was long thought to be haunted." Chills ran down my spine as the reporter continued. Strangely enough, no one knows how the fire started, but it burned with such intensity that nothing was left to salvage. Was it a coincidence? Or had someone else heard the broadcast too? The questions haunted me, swirling in my mind like the smoke of that mysterious fire. I never picked up another transmission on that frequency again, and I never found any answers. But sometimes, when the night is too quiet, I think I hear faint whispers through the static, and I wonder if the creature is still out there, waiting, watching, never truly contained by fire or fear. It began the night we moved into the old Wilcott place, an imposing Victorian manor forgotten by time and veiled in local myths. My wife, Eliza, found it charming, a perfect escape from the city's constant noise that unsettled her nerves. My daughter, Sophie, was enchanted by the sprawling garden, overrun with wildflowers, and the possibility of hidden treasures in every dusty corner of the house. I was less enthused, but a new job in a nearby town and the lure of a fresh start were compelling. From the very first, the manor felt alive, as if it breathed along with us, settling into its new inhabitants. The air was thick with the must of ages and secrets that whispered through the cracked walls and creaked in the ancient floorboards under our feet. We laughed it off, attributing our unease to the typical adjustments of inhabiting a new, albeit very old, home. The knocking started the first night. 3 sharp raps echoing through the silent halls at exactly midnight. I remember looking at the antique grandfather clock in the hallway. Its hands aligned perfectly with the hour as the sounds jolted us from sleep. I rushed downstairs, heart pounding, expecting to find someone in need at our door. But when I swung it open, the porch was empty. The cold night air carrying only the rustle of the trees that lined our driveway. Each night thereafter, the knocking persisted. Always 3 raps. Always at midnight. No more, no less. We searched for explanations. Kids playing pranks, branches hitting the house, old pipes playing tricks. But each investigation left us more baffled, the rational explanations falling short as the occurrences grew more unsettling. One night, the knocking didn't stop. The usual trio of sounds was followed by more, frantic and unending. Eliza clutched her robe tighter as we stood in the hallway, the noise surrounding us. Sophie crept to my side, her small hand finding mine, squeezing with fear. "It won't stop, Daddy," she whispered, her voice trembling. I knew then that I had to do something. I grabbed a flashlight and flung the door open, stepping out into the darkness, the cold biting at my skin. The knocking ceased immediately, leaving a silence so heavy it was suffocating. My beam of light danced across the yard, the trees, the road. Nothing. There was absolutely no one. The next day, driven by a mixture of determination and dread, I visited the local library. The librarian, an elderly woman with eyes too sharp for her years, listened as I described our plight. She hesitated, then pulled out an old ledger, its pages yellowed and brittle. "Wilcott Manor, you say?" "Oh, yes. It has its tales to tell," she murmured, flipping through the book. "Here it is. A tragedy many years ago. A young boy, the son of the housekeeper, used to play tricks on the family, knocking on their door at midnight. One night, he went missing, never to be found. They say he still roams the property, looking for someone to play his midnight game. Chilled, I returned home, unsure how to process the story. That night, as midnight approached, I stood by the door, my family behind me. The clock struck 12, and the knocking began. This time, I opened the door quickly, but again found no one. As I turned back to go inside, Sophie cried out, "Daddy, look!" She pointed to the ground, just where the door would swing. There, in the dust, was a small, dusty footprint, much too small for an adult. I knelt, my hand trembling as I touched the print. It was real, unmistakably the size of a child's. Every night since, the knocking continues. We've tried to ignore it, but sometimes when the wind is still and the house is quiet, we hear laughter, faint and distant, as if carried on the breeze. And sometimes, just as we are drifting off to sleep, we hear a soft whisper, a child's voice asking, "Will you play with me?" We never answer. We never will.